Okay, so task 2, activity 2, compound interest. So we're going to talk about this just now. So the situation we're given is Tom is offered a mortgage on the new house he's buying. Okay, the reason that you need a mortgage is because if the house, say, costs £50,000, very few people have £50,000 lying about in cash. You obviously need to borrow that money from the bank and then you pay it back in monthly instalments. That's what a mortgage is, right? So he's borrowing £50,000 and he can choose either a 20-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage. That means you pay it back over 20 years or you pay it back over 30 years. And the interest rate is a fixed amount, it's 5% per year. Okay, so that means you also have to pay back 5% of whatever the balance is each year. Right? So in part A, it says how much would Tom pay in total for the 20-year mortgage and how much would he pay each month. So here's what you're going to have to do. This is a bit of work that you're going to need to do by yourself. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to BBC Mortgage Calculator. Right? It will ask you how much are you borrowing. The borrowing amount is £50,000. You're going to put that in, £50,000. It's going to ask you what the interest is, and that is a fixed interest rate, which is always, again, a percentage. Interest is always calculated as a percentage, which is 5%, and it's going to ask you how long the term is. So how long the term is, and that's going to be over 20 years. So if you plug that information in, what it's going to give you is how much your monthly payments on that mortgage will be. Okay, so what I want you to do now is go onto your search engine, type in BBC Mortgage Calculator, and then put in this information. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to try and do this by yourself, and then we'll see how you get on and we'll try and get some answers in the comments. Okay, so go away and do that now. If you've got any questions, if you're not sure how to get it, just ask in the comments or just ask out. Okay, so when you have an answer, can you put it in the comments of what the monthly repayment would be? So it gives you what is a mortgage required, how much do you actually need to borrow, what is the repayment period, over how many years, and then what is the interest rate at 5%. I've seen one person, a couple of them putting in, £334.34, that's correct. That's how much it's saying for that. Those details, the monthly payment would be. So write that down. So a monthly payment, it's called a repayment actually because you're paying it back. So monthly repayment is working out at £334.34. Okay, what I want you to do now is change the repayment period from 20 years to 30 years. Okay, that's what we have to do in part B. Change it to 30 years and see how that changes the repayment amount. Okay, so go back to your calculator, change it to still £50,000, still 5% interest, but we're changing it to 30 years, and tell me what the difference is then. What is the new amount? Right, yeah, a lot of you are telling me that. Aye, so you're getting £271 and 4 pence. Sorry, that's how much you'd have to pay back per month for doing it over 30 years. So for 20 years, £334.34. For 30 years, £271 and 4 pence. So what I'm like, why are we doing this basically? What I want you to think about is what are the advantages and the disadvantages of paying it back in less time. So think about it, if we chose to pay it over 20 years, I mean that's hard to get your head around is having an ongoing payment for 20 years, right? It's going to cost us £334 and 34 pence, right? But I could actually, I'm given the option of doing it over 30 years and it's going to cost less per month, okay? But obviously it's over 30 years, not over 20 years. So question C asks you to think about if Tom can afford the monthly repayments for 20 or 30 years, which would you suggest he choose? So would you suggest that he pays it back in 20 years or the 30-year repayment? So I want you to write down a sentence here for yourself. Write down in your jotter, which do you think he should choose, and give me a reason why. So don't just think about on the face of it which one is less. Think about what that means. Think about the payment, that how long they're going to have to pay it back for. Thinking about what that means overall. Write it down, a sentence with which one you would choose, and then I'll get some. Yeah, thanks, Jay. I'll ask you for some feedback in a second. Thank you for writing that in. Right, so put a comment in just now then, in our chat. Which do you think he should choose, and give me a reason why. So Jay said 30 years, 30 option because it's less every month. Okay, and that is correct. That is less. It's £271 a month rather than £334 a month. But I want you to maybe think about what would be the advantages of paying the higher amount over 20 years. Give me a reason why that would be better. Or not that it would be better, give me a reason why that he might choose that. Okay, so type your comment in, please. I want to see some ideas here. Okay, write your comments in now then. Should have a... Right, just make your selection. Is it 20 years or 30 years you think you should choose? And if you can, write a wee sentence as to why you said 20 or 30. Put a comment in now, please. Right, Louis said 20 years. Okay. Can you give me a reason why? I've only got an answer off Louis and Jay. I'd like some other answers, please. Katie says 20 years because it will be over and done with quicker, lol. Yeah, you are correct in that. Well, that's a good reason. It will be paid off in 20 years. So you've got 10 years where you don't have to pay that back. Any other suggestions? Right, yeah, I'll just write down some of those ideas. Yeah, so there's a couple of options. So if you chose the advantages to paying it back over 30 years, the advantages to paying it back over 30 years would be it is less each month, so it's maybe easier to budget, right? And you would have more money left over that you could maybe spend on other things. You could save that money, or you could use that money to go towards something else, right? But there's also a 20-year option, means that it's paid off quicker, meaning that you don't have that debt kind of hanging over your head for an extra 10 years. So it's paid off quicker, you'll pay less interest, right? The quicker you pay it off, the less interest you pay. What that means is actually, see, if you do it over 20 years, you actually will pay less overall, right? If you do it over 30 years, you'll end up paying more overall, right? That's kind of how this works. So the longer you take to pay it back, the more you end up actually paying. So in 20 years, you might, even though you've only borrowed 50,000, you might actually pay back 60,000 in the end when you include interest. But if you do it over 30 years, even though it's less each month, you might actually end up paying back like 70,000 overall. Okay, so it's just something that I want you to think about, is you do get given the option, but often it is with any debt, not just a mortgage, because obviously you won't be thinking about that just now, but maybe if you are soon to be getting a credit card or something like that, it is always better to pay it off quicker if you can afford it. Okay, that's the main thing I want you to take away from that. It's always better to pay your debt off quicker if you can afford it, because you pay less interest overall. Alright, that's activity 1. Activity 2, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got, you learned a bit from that. If you've got anything to comment on, any questions to ask about any of that, put your comment in now. Otherwise, we'll finish up for the day, and